Sentire Media.
Ciao a tutti and welcome to Venice Talks, a podcast series dedicated to Venice in Italy. I'm your host, Monica Cesarato, a Venetian food and travel blogger. Join me as I share my insider knowledge to help you explore Venice at 360 degrees. In this weekly podcast, we'll dive into the heart of a city, uncovering hidden stories and connecting with the people who make Venice unique. The artisans, the writers, the fashion designers, the bloggers, the journalists, and more. Let's break free from cliché and discover the true essence of Venice, not just the monuments, but the vibrant people, the Venetians. Experience Venice the right sustainable way. You can find me on my blog at www.monicacesarato.com and across all social media platforms. Enjoy the episode and let's journey through Venice together. Welcome back to Venice Talks, Season 2, Episode 20. Welcome back to Venice Talks. Today, no guests. I'm taking you somewhere quieter. Everyone comes to Venice for the Doge's Palace, for Peggy Guggenheim's terrace full of pigeons, for the glitter and the queues. But Venice? The Venice I love most hides behind small wooden doors. The kind you might miss if you blink too fast. This is Venice for the curious. A slow walk through the museums you probably skipped. Yep, because I know you always ask me which museums should I be going to. Okay, this is a list. This is the ones where you can actually hear your own footstep, where time doesn't hurry and beauty feels close enough to touch. I will tell you stories and give you practical tips too, because Venice is both poetry and logistics, beauty and timetables. So, lace up your comfortable shoes, charge up your Vaporetto pass, and let's wander. Now, Venice has got two main families of museums, the civic museums and the state museums. They both hold treasures, but they belong to two different teams and each has its own ticket system. This must be clear. Let's start first with the civic museums, or Musei Civici di Venezia. There are 11 and they are run by the city, the Comune di Venezia. They are managed under the network called MUVE, M-U-V-E. Think of them as Venice's local museums. They show the history, the art and the culture of the Republic through Venetian eyes. They include Palazzo Ducale, the Doge's Palace, Museo Correr, Ca' Rezzonico, Ca' Pesaro, Palazzo Mocenigo, Casa di Carlo Goldoni, Museo di Storia Naturale di Venezia, Museo del Vetro in Murano, Museo del Merletto in Burano, Museo Fortuny and Torre dell'Orologio. And you can visit many of them with a single MUVE pass. There are a few versions. There is a St. Mark's Square Museum Pass, gives you access to the Doge's Palace, the Museo Correr, the Archaeological Museum, and the Biblioteca Marciana Room. It's perfect if you want the full Republic of Venice story, you don't have much time, you're going to spend the morning in St. Mark's. Then you can have the Move Friends Pass, which covers all the civic museums, including the smaller ones like Ca' Pesaro, Mocenigo, Murano, Burano, and the Natural History Museum. You can buy them online and they're valid for several months, so no rush to see everything one day. If you got the opportunity to come back later in another time, trust me, you shouldn't look at all the museums in one day. You will find you can book them online and in the Keynotes of a show, I will give you the address. Then there are the state museums or musei statali. These are run by the Italian Ministry of Culture, so they're part of a national heritage network, not the cities. They focus on broader Italian art and history, not just the Venetian culture. In Venice, the main state museums are the Galleria dell'Accademia, the grand collection of Venetian painting from the Middle Ages to the 18th century, Palazzo Grimani, the extraordinary Renaissance palace filled with ancient statues and frescoes, Ca' d'Oro, Galleria Giorgio Franchetti, one of the most beautiful Gothic places on the Grand Canal, with artworks collected by a passionate art lover. For this, you can use the Venezia Unica Museum Pass or specific state passes like the Museum Pass 3 days, which sometimes combines civic and state sites, if both through the official tourism platform. The Venice Museum Pass from Venezia Unica is usually the most flexible. It can include both civic and some state museum, depending on the version. So in short, civic museum, city run, Move Network, Venetian Soul. State museums, national run, Italian heritage focus. If you plan to see a mix of both, let's say the Doge's Palace, Ca' Pesaro, and the Accademia, the Venezia Unica Museum Pass is usually your best friend. It saves money and time, since you can skip the lines, which are quite big in places like the Doge's Palace and the Accademia. And here's my personal advice. Do not try to visit too many in one day. Each museum has its own rhythm. Some whispers, some dazzles, and Venice is best enjoyed when you listen slowly. You cannot rush Venice. She will not let you. Try to do 5 museums in a day, and she will drown your schedule in fogo acqua alta just to remind you who is in charge. So, here's rule number 1 for curious visitor. Slow down. Visit early in the morning, when the city smells of coffee and quiet ambition, or late in the afternoon, when the light turns golden and the day's noise begins to soften. Never do a museum right after lunch. Trust me. Your body will want a nap, not a Bellini or a spritz. Pick 1 or 2 places a day. Take breaks between them. Even a spritz, even though you know how to like spritz, counts as cultural research if you drink it beside a canal. And when you step inside, breathe. Do not photograph everything. Look for one piece that catches your heart, a face, a brushstroke, a bit of light, a particular detail, and stay with it. This is how Venetians visit museums, not as checklist, but as a conversation. All right? Now, let's start exploring. Our first stop is Palazzo Grimani, tucked in Castello near Santa Maria Formosa. You can actually hear all about it on Season 1, Episode 37. Now imagine a nobleman who collected gods instead of gossip. Palazzo Grimani, that's a whole different kind of Venetian beauty. It is bold, intellectual, and a little bit eccentric. A perfect mirror of a man who built it, Giovanni Grimani, who was the patriarch of Aquileia and one of the most cultural minds of the Renaissance. The palace is tucked away just behind Campo Santa Maria Formosa, and it feels like walking into a dialogue between Venice and ancient Rome. Instead of the usual gilded ceilings and chandelier that I'm pretty sure you get used to see when you go inside all the different museums, you will find frescoes, stuccos, and mythological scenes inspired by classical antiquity. Grimani was an art collector. a humanist and something of a visionary. He turned his family home into a private museum before museum existed. Here's what you expect when you visit. Architecture unlike any other in Venice. It feels more like a Roman villa than a lagoon palace, with marble staircases, geometric courtyards, and perfect symmetry, a rarity in this waterbound city. The rooms are adorned with fresco by Giovanni da Udine. He was a pupil of Raphael, and other masters. Gods, nymphs, and allegories float above you in soft Renaissance colors. The spectacular Tribuna Grimani, once filled with Grimani's ancient statues and considered one of the most beautiful galleries of the 16th century. The statues are now back and they carefully reassembled, and the effect, trust me, is breathtaking. And then there are the temporary exhibitions, which are often a bridge between the past and the present. Think contemporary artists dialoguing with Renaissance spaces. And the atmosphere, half scholarly, half mystical, that makes you feel as though you step into the dream of a collector who never quite left. Palazzo Grimani is a feast for the eyes and the mind. It is the Venice of scholars, of antiquarians and thinkers, less about silk and more about soul. It feels alive because it was once a home. There are fireplaces, ceramic tiles walls where the kitchens once stood. Even the silence seems rehearsed. Now, practical notes. As of today, 2025, the tickets are €12 per person. Open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday to Sunday, closed on Mondays. Go right after opening if you can. You might have all galleries to yourself, like let's say, for example, the Tribuna. Usually there is a queue to go there, but if you go early in the morning, trust me, you will have a place totally for yourself. I remember one day I actually went, it was in high season, and there were only 4 people visiting the building. So, that's big for Venice. Now, let me take you to one of those Venetian places that you could easily walk past without realizing how special it is. The Fondazione Querini Stampalia, just a few steps from Campo Santa Maria Formosa. From the outside, it looks calm, almost shy. But once you step inside, it is like opening a door into the mind and memory of Venice. The palace once belonged to the Querini Stampalia family, one of the city's great noble dynasties. When the last descendant, Count Giovanni, they are all called Giovanni, died in the 1800s, he left a remarkable gift to Venice. He donated his home, his library, and his entire collection to the people. So the knowledge and beauty will always stay open to everyone, and it still is. The first thing that welcomes you is the library, public library, warm, wooden, quiet. You will see students and locals reading, studying, daydreaming. It feels like the heart of a place, the steady rhythm of a page's turning, the sense of calm you rarely find in a city that floats. Upstairs, the museum rooms are pure elegance. You wander through what feels like an aristocrat's home, left just as it was. Paintings by Giovanni Bellini, Tiepolo, Palma al Vecchio, delicate porcelain, little details of daily life, the kind of things that make history feel human again. But then you head downstairs and everything changes, because here Venice meets modern genius. The great Carlo Scarpa redesigned the ground floor and the garden in the 1960s, creating a space that is half architecture, half meditation. He brought the lagoon inside the building. Water gently flows through marble and light. Every sound, every reflection feels intentional. It is one of those places where you stop talking and just listen to the water move. And of course, there are always temporary exhibitions, from contemporary art to photography and design, that keep the conversation between past and present alive. For me, Querini Stampalia feels like Venice in miniature. History upstairs, imaginations downstairs, water everywhere, connecting it all. If you visit, take a moment in the garden, sit by the pool, Let the reflections dance around you and feel how Venice breathes slowly, gracefully, like it has all the time in the world. Opening hours are Tuesday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., closed on Mondays. The ticket is €15 as of 2025. Next, we move into Santa Croce and we go to another world, Palazzo Mocenigo. Forget marble this time, think silk and perfume. The moment you walk in, the air changes. There is a room devoted entirely to scent, where you can sniff your way through centuries. Velvets, wigs, powdered secrets. The 18th century still lingers in the drapes. The Mocenigo family was one of Venice's oldest noble lineages, and no less than 7 doges came from it. Their residence, now part of a city museums network, offer a rare glimpse into the elegant daily life of 18th century Venetian nobility. Silk curtains, carved ceilings, and chandeliers that seem to float in time. The palace hosts a museum of perfume and costume, a unique collection dedicated to fragrance, fashion, and beauty rituals from the Renaissance to today. You will find period costumes and fabric that show how Venice once dressed the world in silk and velvet, a fascinating olfactory itinerary where you can actually smell recreated historical perfumes, amber, musk, rose, and spicy blends that once filled the Venetian salons. Interactive displays explaining how Venice became a perfume capital, importing essences from the East through its maritime trade routes. You can read a blog post on my blog regarding the Merchant of Venice telling you all of this about the perfumes. And then there are occasional temporary exhibitions focusing on modern fashion, sustainable scent design, and contemporary interpretation of Venetian elegance. What can I say? It's an intimate museum with texture and scent rather than crowds and grandeur. Tickets are about €10. They're open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in summer and 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in winter, from Tuesday to Sunday, and they're closed on Mondays. From May to September, sometimes they stay open late on Friday and Saturdays, but you need to check their website. And yes, it's perfectly acceptable to imagine Casanova hiding behind one of those curtains. Talking of Casanova, I can just imagine him walking in the rooms of Carezzonico, the museum of 18th century Venice. If you have ever wanted to walk straight into a painting by Tiepolo, this is your chance. The palace rises proudly on the Grand Canal, all marble and light. It was designed by Baldassare Longhena, one of the Venice's great Baroque architects, and completed in the 18th century when the Rezzonico family, newly rich from trade, wanted a home that would make the entire city stare. And stare they did. The grand staircase sweeps you upward into a world of chandeliers, brocades, and rooms that still seem to hold the warmth of candlelight. Every corner whispers of the age when Venice danced, when carnivals lasted months and masks its secrets more easily than faces. Inside, it is not just a museum, it is a time machine lined with silk. In the ballroom, look up. Tiepolo's frescoes still flirt with the ceilings, angels tumbling through painted skies. The mirrors throw the light back and forth like gossip. You can almost hear the rustle of silk gowns, the soft laughter, and the faint music from a harpsichord in another room. Walk further and you will find the recreative bedrooms and salons, filled with exquisite furniture, porcelain, fans, and small mirrors where powdered faces once checked the curls before heading to a masked ball. On the upper floors, there are portraits by Pietro Longhi, scenes of everyday life, card games, flirtations, masked intrigue, moments that show how Venetians saw themselves during the fun or glittery century before Napoleon's arrival. Carezzonico is a portrait of a city at its most elegant and most human, a celebration of beauty and irony before the curtain fell. Practical notes. Tickets cost €10 and the museum is open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and is closed on Mondays. It is part of Musei Civici di Venezia, so is included in the Move Pass. Before you leave, step out onto the balcony, if they allow you. The view over the Grand Canal is pure theatre. Sunlight gliding across the water, gondolas drifting by, and Venice, as always, playing herself to perfection. Now, let's cross the Grand Canal to Museo Fortuny at Palazzo Pesaro Orfei near St. Mark's. Here, time collapses. Mariano Fortuny's home is half a museum, half a dream. Ah, Palazzo Fortuny. Now we enter the temple of light and fabric, the secret lair of one of Venice's most fascinating minds, Mariano Fortuny y Madrazo. Hidden in a narrow calle near Campo San Benedetto, the palazzo feels less like a museum and more like stepping inside Fortuny's imagination, a place where art, science, and sensuality mingle in dim light and velvet shadows. Mariano Fortuny was a true Renaissance spirit reborn in the early 20th century. He was a painter, a stage designer, an inventor, a photographer, and a couturier. And his home reflects it all. When you walk in, the air itself seems heavier, scented with wood, fabric, and history. Here is what to expect when you visit. The atmosphere of an artist's atelier frozen in time. Fortuny lived and worked here with his family, his kids, his wife, his kids, and his spirit lingers in every fold of silk and beam of filtered light. His famous pleated Delphos gowns, inspired by ancient Greece and still breathtakingly modern, simple, fluid, shimmering like moonlit water. There is a whole room dedicated just to these gowns. Textile rooms, where you can see how Fortuny revolutionized fabric printing with his secret dye techniques and patterns, which were inspired by Islamic, Renaissance, and Oriental art. And then the studio space, which is filled with tools, sketches, and the genius of experimentation, from stage lighting system to his photographic work. And then there are the contemporary art exhibitions on the top floor, since the Palazzo continues Fortuny's legacy by hosting avant-garde artists who shares his curiosity and taste for the unusual. Visiting this place feels like entering a dream made of velvet and light. If you go, make sure to check the current exhibition. They change often. Ticket is €10. They're open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in summer and from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. in winter. And, strangely, they closed on Tuesdays. Everybody else is closed on Mondays. They close on Tuesday. Go on a cloudy day. The light through those curtains will make you fall in love. By now, you have noticed something else. All these palaces still have a pulse. They were homes before they were museums. And they still remember laughter, footsteps, dinners. That's what makes them magic and different from all the other museums in the world. All right? Stretch your legs. Maybe grab a coffee now. We leave marble and velvet behind for something completely different. Lace, bones, and sea monsters. Right, have you finished your espresso yet? Is your curiosity refilled? Okay then, let's continue our wander. Every museum in Venice tells you something about the city's soul. Some whisper through lace, others roar through fossils. Let's start in Burano, the island of color and patience. You need to take Vaporetto number 12 from Fondamenta 9. It glides across the lagoon like a slow sigh. By the time you arrive, your mood will have already softened and relaxed. So, now let's talk about one of my favorite little gems in the Venetian lagoon, il Museo del Merletto, the Lace Museum of Burano. You will find it right on Piazza Galuppi, inside the old Scuola di Merletti, where for centuries women created lace so fine it almost seemed made of air. When you step inside, it feels like entering a quieter time. The rooms are filled with delicate masterpieces, some dating back to the 16th century, when Burano lace was so precious it adorned the clothes of queens and the altars of Venice. Every single piece tells a story of patience, skills, and generations of women who turned thread into art. One of the highlights, sometimes, is that you can actually see the lace makers at work. They sit there, needle in hand, creating this tiny, perfect pattern right in front of you. Their hands move so quickly, yet so gracefully, that it feels like watching music in motion. The museum also tells the story of revival, how, after centuries of fame, Burano lace almost disappeared, and how a group of determined women brought it back to life in the late 1800s. There are photos, documents, and plenty of lace samples that shows how styles evolved through the ages. And of course, it is Burano. So when you stepped outside, you're surrounded by all those brightly colored houses, little bridges, and the smell of the sea. It is honestly the perfect way to spend a quiet morning or afternoon away from the crowds. If you go, take your time. Let yourself slow down, like the rhythm of a needle and thread. Maybe grab a coffee right after, sit by the water, and watch the island shimmer like the lace itself. It is not a grand museum. It is pretty small. It is intimate, human, and deeply emotional. A tribute to craftswomen who preserve beauty through silence and skill. When you step back outside into the rainbow of Burano houses, you will realize that the island itself feels like a living lace. Each color a stitch, each canal a thread. Opening times 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., Tuesday to Sunday, Monday is closed. The ticket is €5. It's free if you have the Musei Civici Pass, the Move Pass. And yes, there is a little shop, but please look first and buy later. Now, from delicate lace to dinosaur bones, welcome to the Museo di Storia Naturale di Venezia, in the Fondaco dei Turchi along the Grand Canal. The Museo di Storia Naturale di Venezia. Now, that is one of those places that surprises everyone. It sits quietly on the Grand Canal, inside the beautiful Fondaco dei Turchi, a building that once housed merchants from the East, and is full of stories of silk, spices, and sea. From the outside, it looks like a slice of medieval mystery, but inside, oh gosh, it is a world of wonders. Oh yes, let's take a proper wander inside this museum, because it is far more fascinating than most people expect. And it's perfect if you want to entertain your kid. It is a bit like walking through a Venetian time machine, where the city love of exploration and curiosity comes alive again. Here is what you will actually find inside. Number 1, the Dinosaur Hall, Salone dei Cetacei. The moment you step through the doors, you are greeted by the enormous skeleton of the Ouranosaurus nigeriensis, a 7-meter-long herbivorous dinosaur from the Sahara. Above you hang the skeletons of giant sea creatures, a whale and a shark, suspended in air like they are swimming through history. It is dramatic, cinematic, and utterly unexpected in Venice. Number 2, the Wunderkammer, the Cabinet of Curiosity. This is where Venice's age of discovery comes to life. You will see exotic shells, corals, fossils, stuffed animals, tons of stuffed animals, insects, and ethnographic pieces collected by Venetian explorers from the 17th century onward. It feels like entering a room from another era, filled with wooden cabinets and the spirit of adventure. The kind of place where Marco Polo's ghost might just stop to browse. Number 3, the scientific collections. The museum houses over 2 million specimens, many collected during scientific expeditions. You will find fossils from the Dolomites and the Veneto region, minerals and meteorites from around the world, insects, butterflies, and birds displayed in beautiful cases, and an extraordinary mammal collection with wolves, foxes, deer, and more, all used to study the biodiversity of Northern Italy. 4, the Adriatic and Lagoon sections. Here the museum becomes truly Venetian. You will discover how the lagoon's ecosystem functions, from its tiniest plankton to its largest birds. There are models, videos, and even tanks that explain how the tides, salt marshes, and canals form this fragile living environment. It is both educational and poetic, reminding you that Venice exists thanks to nature, not in spite of. And then the interactive and educational spaces. It is especially good for children and families, but trust me, it keeps adults engaged too. And then the building itself, Fondaco dei Turchi. Do not forget to look up. The palace is a masterpiece of Venetian Byzantine architecture, one of the oldest palaces on the Grand Canal. The view from its loggia towards the water is worth a visit alone. Altogether, it's part science lab, part explorer's attic, part storybook, and entirely Venetian in its blend of curiosity and beauty. It's open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., closed on Mondays, and the tickets is €10. Must bring children. If you go alone, make sure you stand under the well skeleton. It humbles you in the best way. Venice is small, but her imagination immense. Now, we have seen the lace and the bones, threads of human curiosity woven through time. But Venice isn't done with you yet. Now we enter the rooms of dreamers, collectors, visionaries, people who turn their lives into living museums. And now, let's talk about one of my favorite palaces on the Grand Canal, Pesaro, a place where Baroque splendor meets modern rebellion. You can hear all about it on episode 18 of season 2 of Venice Talk. This massive marble palace was designed in the 7th century by Baldassare Longhena, the same architect who created Santa Maria della Salute. It was built for the noble Pesaro family, grand, imposing, full of sculpted stone and power. For centuries, it was the perfect symbol of Venice's glory and excess. But today, the story inside is very different, because behind the facade lives the Galleria Internazionale d'Arte Moderna, the International Gallery of Modern Art. It was established in the early 1900s when the city wanted to give a home to the bold, sometimes scandalous works that had appeared at the first Venice Biennales. Many of those artists, Klimt, Chagall, Rodin, Kandinsky, Boccioni, were shaking the art world, and Venice, ever curious, embraced them. So, as you walk through the rooms of Pesaro, you are surrounded by this extraordinary mix: gilded ceilings and swirling stuccos above you, and modern, daring art on the walls. You can actually feel the dialogue between centuries, as if the palace itself is watching, slightly amused, as modernity takes root beneath the chandeliers. Upstairs, there is another treasure, the Museo d'Arte Orientale, with Japanese and Chinese collections gathered during Venice's trade voyages and early expeditions. Delicate kimonos, lacquers, samurai armors and katanas, and carvings that once fascinated European collectors. It is a quiet, reflective space filled with echoes of Venice's centuries of exchange with the East. Definitely quiet. It's one of the quietest museum I ever been. Visiting Capesaro feels like stepping into a conversation between East and West, old and new, tradition and experiment. It's the Venice that never stopped reinventing herself. Capesaro is part of the Musei Civici, so you can access it with a Move Pass. It's open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, but Mondays as usual. The ticket costs €10, but it's part, as I was saying, of the museum, Venice Museum Pass and the Move Pass. A little tip. Go in the morning, when the light from the Grand Canal pours through those big Baroque windows. The reflection on the marble floors are reasons enough to linger. Now, tucked into the quiet heart of Dorso Duro, there is another smaller jewel that many visitors overlook. That is Palazzo Chini Gallery. It is elegant and intimate, one of those places where you immediately lower your voice without even meaning to. It feels like stepping into someone's private home, and that is exactly what it once was. The palace belonged to Count Vittorio Cini, one of Italy's great collectors and philanthropists of the 20th century. After losing his son Giorgio in a tragic plane crash, he devoted his life to preserving and supporting art and culture, founding the Giorgio Cini Foundation on the island of San Giorgio Maggiore, and opening this gallery to share his collection with the public. Inside, you will find Botticelli, Piero di Cosimo, Pontormo, Filippino Lippi, and Tintoretto, all surrounded by antique furniture, tapestries, and ceramic that once belonged to the family. The rooms are softly lit, the walls rich in color, and the whole atmosphere feels personal, as if you've been invited into the private world of a Venetian collector who loved beauty and conversation in equal measure. The Galleria focuses on Renaissance art from Tuscany and Ferrara, a passion of Count Cini's, but it also hosts temporary exhibitions that bring in contemporary artists or explore new dialogues with his historic collection. And here's something many people don't realize. Palazzo Cini is part of the Dorso Duro Museum Mile, a beautiful walking route that connects 4 incredible art spaces along the Grand Canal. Starting from Galleria dell'Accademia, you continue to the Peggy Guggenheim collection, to then Palazzo Cini, and finally to Punta della Dogana, home to François Pinault Contemporary Art Collection. It's a walk through 5 centuries of art, from Bellini to Pollock to today, all within a few meters. Practical notices: Palazzo Cini Gallery is open seasonally, usually from April to November, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., and is closed on Tuesdays, and the ticket costs €10. If you can, go in the late afternoon. That's when the Dorso Duro light turns gold and the paintings seem to glow from within. It's not a grand museum, but is one of those places that stays with you. Quiet, reflective, and deeply Venetian. A different kind of dreamer lived across the Grand Canal. Carlo Goldoni, Venice's great playwright. While painters capture the city's beauty, he captured his voices. The gossip of neighbors, the quick wit of a market seller, the little acts of pride and kindness that make up everyday life. All of it found its way into his comedies. His modest birthplace in San Tomà is now the Casa di Carlo Goldoni Museum. From the outside, it looks like any other Venetian house. Brick facade, small courtyard, wooden beams. But step inside and you can almost hear the echo from centuries ago. Goldoni was born here in 1707 into a middle-class family. He studied law, traveled, and wrote obsessively, over 150 plays, transforming Italian theatre forever. He gave it real people instead of stock characters. Clever women, foolish men, cunning servants, and lovers who sounded just like the people outside his windows. The museum preserves a sense of intimacy. The rooms are small and warm, filled with manuscripts, costumes, portraits, and marionettes, reminders of a living puppets theatres that once delighted Venetian audiences. There is even a tiny stage where scenes from his comedies are projected so you can see his world leap back to life. It isn't grand, but it has a soul, a glimpse into the ordinary life behind extraordinary words. Casa di Carlo Goldoni is part of the Musei Civici. It's open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's closed on Wednesdays, and the ticket is €5. If you linger by a window and look down at the narrow calle, it is easy to imagine Goldoni himself there, notebook in hand, listening, smiling, already turning everyday life into theatre. So far, we've moved through palaces, lace, fossils, and silk, and somehow it all makes sense, because curiosity is the thread that stitches this city together. Coming up next, we'll step outside again, to the greatest museum of all, Venice herself. Now, one last museum remains, and it has no doors at all. We wander through rooms of lace and marble, of perfume and fossils, of paintings and ghosts, but the greatest museum in Venice is not behind the ticket counter. It is the city herself. Look up when you walk. You will see small votive shrines tucked in corners, the Madonna watching over a narrow calle, her glass lantern lit at night by some kind soul. That's not religion, that's continuity, a city reminding itself to be gentle. Even the pavements tell stories. Some stones are older than the buildings they support. When you hear your footsteps echo through the narrow streets, remember, countless feet have walked the same rhythm before you. Venice doesn't separate art from existence. She is art, accidental, patient, half sinking, half eternal. So, maybe the trick is not to see Venice as a collection of museums, but as one giant open-air exhibition, curated by time, curated by water. If you learn to look closely, you will find masterpieces where others just see moss. That's the real secret, I think. Venice doesn't need to be conquered, only courted. She opens slowly, like a book written in salt and silence, and if you listen long enough, she will speak to you in her own tongue, part Venetian, part seagull, part sigh of a tide. So, here's my advice for your next visit. Pick one museum, just one. Spend the whole morning there. Then have lunch somewhere unhurried, maybe a cicchetto or a glass of wine in one of the osterie. In the afternoon, wander with no destination. Let curiosity, no Google Maps, be your guide. That's how you will find the Venice I know, the Venice that still breathes. You do not need to see everything in Venice. You only need to feel something. The moment when light hits water just right, when a painting looks back at you, when you realize silence has its own melody. If today's walk inspired you, tell me which hidden museum you'll visit next. Send me a message, share a photo, or just keep it as your secret corner of a city. And if you see me wandering with a notebook and a coffee, come say hello. I'll probably be lost on purpose. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep your heart a little bit Venetian. From Venice, with salt in the air and stories everywhere, I'm Monica Cesarato, and this was Venice Talks. Thank you again for listening. Venice Talks podcast is a production of Sentire Media, created, produced, and hosted by me, Monica Cesarato. Follow Venice Talks wherever you get your podcast. And if you want to book a food tour or a cooking experience with me, you can find me over at www.monicacesarato.com and on all social medias with the handle @monicacesarato, where you can follow my adventures around Venice. And don't forget, if you love this episode, please rate it and leave a review. It's very much appreciated.
Sentire Media.
Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.